I hiked to disconnect from deadlines, notifications, noise, just trees, sky, and the crunch of gravel underfoot. That's all I wanted when I parked at the trailhead to Cinder Grove Preserve. No cell towers for 10 miles. Perfect. It was a warm June morning. The sun dappled through the trees like spilled gold. Birds chirped from deep in the brush. I tightened my backpack straps, adjusted my GoPro, and started recording. My YouTube channel, Trail Mason, had grown a modest following of hikers and gearheads. This video would be just another solo loop through a newly reopened reserve. A wooden sign greeted me. Cinder Grove Preserve, reopened after 32 years. No reason given for the closure. Not that it mattered. The trail welcomed me with rich, earthy smells. Leaves glistened with dew. Every few minutes I paused to narrate, talking about moss growth, tree bark, my water filtration kit, standard stuff. About an hour in, I stopped for a drink. That's when I noticed it, a pinprick sensation behind my left ear. I brushed it off, assuming it was a mosquito. 10 minutes later, it was back. Same spot. This time I felt a tiny bump, like a grain of rice buried in the skin. I winced and pulled out my phone's camera to look. A tick. Damn. I always check before hiking. How'd this one get through? I yanked it off with a napkin and crushed it under my boot. The smear it left behind was oddly metallic, like dark mercury. Weird. Shrugging it off, I pressed on. A few hours passed. I should have looped back to the trailhead by now, but I didn't recognize anything. Every tree looked wrong, repeating. A birch with a scar down the middle, a stump that looked like a coiled serpent. Had I circled? Then the whisper came. At first I thought it was wind. Maasen. I froze, looked around, no one, nothing, just a rustle of leaves. Then again, Maasen. Clearer. From ahead. I should have turned back, but I walked forward, 1 step, 2, 10. That's when I found the man. He sat on a rock, head slumped, wearing an old ranger uniform. Mold covered his boots. I stumbled backward, tripping on a root, and my hand landed on something warm. Another tick, bigger, swollen, still pulsing. I slapped it off. It burst on a rock. Black ichor fizzled like acid. I looked up. The ranger was gone, but the rock was still wet where he'd sat. Back on the trail, I started noticing things. I'd forget why I was filming. I'd blink and be 50 yards ahead with no memory of walking. Voices echoed in my ears. My own voice. Speaking sentences I never said. Repeating facts about the forest. Correcting myself in ways I didn't understand. At one point, I looked down and saw 4 ticks crawling on my hand. I hadn't felt them. They moved in synchronized patterns, spirals like a dance. I flung them off, panting. Panic crept up my throat. Then came the dream. Though I was awake. I stood on a black hill, forest burning below, people crawling on all fours, laughing, their bodies covered in small, pulsating creatures. They whispered the same word, remember. Then I woke, or thought I did, lying on the trail with leaves in my mouth. The sun hadn't moved. I stumbled into a clearing. At the center was a hollow tree wide enough to step into. Inside it was warm, wet, buzzing. I reached out, hundreds of ticks, hanging, nesting, twitching. Then I heard it, the voice, inside my skull, welcome home. And suddenly I remembered things I never lived. People, places, forest fires from decades ago, a girl who vanished in '89, a park ranger who sealed the grove. All memories not mine, but alive in me. Each tick I realized carries a soul, a fragment, a sliver of thought buried into host after host. They weren't just parasites, they were archivists. I ran. Branches tore at my arms, my legs burned. I didn't care. I needed out. When I reached the trailhead, the sun had changed, lower, redder. My watch read 4:22 p.m., but the date said August 14th, 2027. I'd entered the Grove on June 5th, 2023. 4 years gone. My backpack was rotting, my clothes didn't fit right, I had scars I didn't remember. Back home, things were worse. My videos all gone, my apartment emptied. Parents moved. Friends thought I ghosted them. There were reports, missing persons, presumed dead. But that wasn't the worst part. At night, I speak in my sleep, languages I never knew. I sketch places I've never seen, and sometimes I find ticks on my pillow, not one or two. Dozens, all lined up, watching, waiting to be remembered. What would you have done if this happened to you? Let me know in the comment. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We weren't even supposed to hike that trail. It was a last-minute change. The Blue Ridge Loop was flooded from a recent storm, and the ranger at the visitor center mentioned an alternate path. Echo Trail, he said. Quiet, scenic, you'll love it. He smiled, but didn't quite meet my eyes. I should have paid attention to that. It was me, my boyfriend Nolan, and my little brother Jamie, 17 and glued to his headphones. We were doing a weekend hike before Jamie shipped off to college, a goodbye of sorts. The trailhead looked normal, weathered sign, narrow dirt path cutting through pine trees, a quiet you don't get in cities, peaceful. Almost too still. I remember thinking, this will be good for us. At first it was. Sunlight filtered through the branches like golden curtains, moss-covered stones, birds calling out in the distance, the crunch of boots on gravel. Jamie actually smiled, said the air smelled like Christmas. We stopped for lunch near a creek. The water was crystal clear, cold as ice. I dipped my fingers in and looked at Nolan, who was fiddling with the trail map. This place isn't marked, he said, frowning. What do you mean? I asked. It's not on the updated app, just gone. That was our first clue. We pressed on. By late afternoon, the shadows were long and the path began to narrow. Trees closed in tighter. The sound of the stream disappeared behind us. That's when Jamie stopped walking. He turned his head. You hear that? He whispered. I strained my ears, faint like wind, then clearer. Jamie? Come here, sweetheart. My heart froze. It was Mom's voice. But she'd been dead for 2 years. Nolan stiffened. Did you hear? Yes, I said. Jamie took a shaky step toward the trees. That's her. I swear it's her. Jamie, no, I said, grabbing his arm. He shook me off. You don't understand. She sounds scared. The voice came again, closer now. Jamie, I need you. I looked into the woods, but there was no one. Just shadows between trees. Bark like cracked skin. Air that suddenly felt too warm, too thick. Let's go, I said. Now. We picked up speed, but the path kept twisting. Each turn felt like a circle. No markers. No signs. Nolan cursed under his breath. Then it was my turn. I heard Dad. Claire Bear, slow down. You're going to fall again. My knees buckled. Dad had died when I was 11. He used to say that when I ran too fast on gravel, the voice was perfect. The tone, the rasp, the love in it. I started crying. Don't listen, Nolan said. Keep walking. We heard Jamie scream behind us. We spun around. He was gone. Just gone. His pack lay on the trail, straps torn. No footprints leading off. No sound except his voice echoing through the woods. Claire, help me. Nolan and I ran. Panic took over. Branches sliced at my arms. The voices chased us. Don't leave me, Claire. I miss you. Come home. Sometimes it was Mom, sometimes Dad. Sometimes even Nolan's voice, whispering things he hadn't said. It was always someone we loved. We stopped only when we saw a cabin in the distance. It was small, rotting. The door was ajar, but it was shelter. Inside, dust choked the air. Cobwebs clung to every beam. A broken rocking chair faced the corner, and a wall covered in names, hundreds of them, carved deep. Nolan found his. "Jesus," he whispered. "That's me, the date's today." I found Jamie's. Mine too. I ran my fingers over the jagged letters. Something moved behind us. We turned, and there he was, Jamie, pale, eyes wide but wrong. His mouth smiled, his eyes didn't. "You came back," he said. I stepped forward and Nolan grabbed my wrist. "That's not him," he said. I knew he was right. Jamie blinked. "Mom's waiting outside." We bolted. We didn't stop running until we hit the trailhead. It was morning. The ranger from before stood at his post sipping coffee like nothing happened. "Echo Trail?" he said when I confronted him. "That trail's been closed for years. Landslide took it out." I pointed behind us, but the sign was gone. Just forest, just silence. Back home, Nolan barely speaks. Jamie was never found. His name never appeared in any report. No photos, no record of the trail. Like he vanished into myth. But I remember, and every so often, when I walk alone or sit outside at night, I hear Mom's voice, calling my name, and I have to fight the urge to answer. The trail was practically empty, and that's exactly why I chose it. I was 2 months out of a divorce, fresh off a leave of absence from my teaching job, and had decided I needed solitude and air more than anything. No social media, no voicemail. Just trees, dirt, and time to let my brain settle. Limestone Pass was perfect for that. Secluded, scenic, and lightly trafficked according to the ranger at the Welcome Center. This time of year, you might go the whole weekend without seeing another soul, she said with a smile. Just follow the cairns, they'll keep you on the right trail. Cairns, the little stacks of rocks hikers make to mark the path. I'd seen them before, never thought much about them. But Limestone Pass had hundreds. I noticed them the moment I started up the trail. Neat, carefully balanced stacks, 3 to 7 stones each, perched on logs beside trees, even tucked into the crooks of branches. Some looked ancient, moss-covered and sun-bleached. Others were recent. I stopped to take a photo of one, the sunlight hitting it just right. As I lowered the camera, I noticed something. There were no footprints around it, not even mine. By midday, I'd hiked nearly 6 miles. Birds chirped overhead. The smell of pine and damp leaves filled the air. Every now and then I passed another cairn. They gave the forest a kind of rhythm, like punctuation marks in a sentence too long to finish. I sat to eat lunch beneath a sloped ledge. The silence was almost heavy, not oppressive, just thick. Then I saw it. A cairn nearby, 5 stones tall, had shifted. The top stone was gone. I hadn't touched it. I was sure of it. Maybe it fell. Maybe an animal knocked it over. I stood and walked over to fix it, gently placing the top stone back. Immediately the air grew colder. Not a breeze, just a sensation. Like someone exhaling behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But the trees suddenly felt closer. That night I made camp near a clearing. The moon was full, the woods were quiet. At around 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of rocks clinking. I sat up in my tent, heart thudding. Listened. Clink, clink, shuffle, pause, clink, like someone stacking stones just beyond the firelight. I called out. No answer. When I unzipped the tent and looked out, no one was there. But a new cairn had appeared at the edge of camp. One I hadn't seen before. I approached it. 6 stones, perfectly stacked. The top stone had a crude face scratched into it. Not carved, just etched like fingernails into granite. A circle for a head. 2 empty ovals for eyes. The next morning I packed fast. The trail back was different, subtle but wrong. The cairns were everywhere now, one every 20 feet, taller, more complex. Some had bones wedged between the stones, squirrel skulls, bird wings, what looked like human teeth. And the trees whispered. I don't mean rustled. I mean whispered, in words I didn't understand, soft like breath in the ear. I began to feel watched. The hair on my neck stood up. My skin itched beneath my clothes. Then I saw a hiker ahead. Finally, a real person. I shouted. They didn't turn. As I got closer, I realized something was wrong. They were still, too still. And then I saw it wasn't a hiker. It was a figure made of bark and old clothes. A scarecrow. Its head was a rock, one from a cairn with the same empty eyes. It pointed toward a new path, not the one I came from. And all around it were cairns, dozens, all freshly built. I turned and ran. My breath came ragged, my legs burned, but the trail wouldn't end. Hours passed. The sky stayed dim. The cairns followed, always ahead of me like someone was moving them, or something. I collapsed near a ridge and tried to rest. That's when I felt it, a weight in my pocket. I reached in, a stone. Smooth, warm, with a face, not scratched, carved this time. Deeply, deliberately, it looked like me. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke at dusk, surrounded by new cairns, hundreds, a forest of them, and standing among them were figures, pale, shifting, watching. Each one placed a rock on a pile, and each time they did, I felt something pull in my chest, like threads unraveling. I screamed. No sound came out. They came closer, whispering, arms outstretched, carrying more rocks. I ran. I woke in a hospital 3 days later. Hikers found me near the base of the trail, dehydrated and screaming about rocks. They say I was missing for a week. No one found cairns, no faces, no scarecrows. But every night since, I dream of them, the whispering, the weight, and every morning there's a new rock on my doorstep, stacked just so, waiting to be placed. No one climbs Widow's Crown. That's what the locals say. Every town with a mountain like this has its own folklore, but Widow's Crown? People spoke about it like it wasn't just dangerous, like it was wrong. It jutted above the Rockies like a cracked black tooth, wreathed in near-permanent mist and absent from most topographical maps. Trails that once led to its base were rerouted or buried. The ranger station didn't even list it as part of the protected range, but I had to climb it. After I lost my brother Nathan to a climbing accident last year, I dropped everything: work, relationships, rent. I needed something. Widow's Crown called to me, though I couldn't say why. Maybe it was the challenge. Maybe it was the chance to finish something Nathan never could. Maybe it was because he mentioned it in his final voicemail. Widow's Crown. It's not just a mountain, Caleb, he said, his voice trembling. You have to see it for yourself. But don't go too high. Whatever you do, don't go to the top. I ignored that part. The base of the mountain was thick with fog, even at noon. The forest smelled like wet stone and copper. My boots crunched over dead pine needles and old animal bones. Every so often, I passed remnants of previous hikers, weathered climbing gloves, a rusted ice axe, once even a frayed backpack half buried in snow. Still, the lower ridge was passable. The sun filtered weakly through the mist, and the air was clean and cool. It almost felt sacred. Then things began to shift. At 7,000 feet, the trees thinned. A stone path, clearly man-made, appeared beneath the moss. Symbols I didn't recognize were carved into the rocks. Circles, spirals, figures with too many limbs. At 200 feet, I passed a wooden sign splintered down the middle. The only legible word, forbidden. Snow fell gently despite the forecast. I should have turned back. Instead, I kept climbing. That night, I camped on a narrow ledge beneath an overhang. I dreamed of my brother, standing just ahead on the ridge, beckoning. But when I got closer, he had no face. By 10,000 feet, reality was unsteady. I'd check my compass. The needle would spin. My watch counted backward. The trail twisted in impossible ways. A slope I had just climbed now loomed above me. I looked down to find my footprints in front of me. I saw figures, not people, not animals. Shapes, like flickers in a film reel, always in the corner of my eye. And always I heard my brother's voice calling me upward. The wind whispered my name. At 11,300 feet, I found a camp. Tents shredded, journals soaked in blood. One page was still readable. The mountain feeds on memory. The higher you go, the less you belong to yourself. I kept going because I had to. By the final ascent, the snow was black. Not just dirty, black like ash. The sky was the color of bone. The air vibrated. Time dissolved. My hands looked younger. My breath aged me. I saw a child, me, stumbling across the trail, then vanish. I looked into a reflective patch of ice. I was not me. I had Nathan's face, and behind it, something else, smiling. At the summit, there was no view, only a mirror, a towering slab of polished obsidian, as tall as a tree. My reflection rippled, shifted, showed versions of me, laughing, screaming, dead, not human. Then it cracked. A voice echoed from inside, "Welcome home." The ground opened beneath me. I woke at the base, clothes torn, journal gone, 2 weeks missing. The ranger said I was lucky to be alive. But I know the truth. That mountain didn't just take something, it replaced it. Sometimes I forget my name, sometimes I dream in languages I don't know. And sometimes I catch my reflection doing things I'm not. Widow's crown shows you who you are, then it decides if it wants you back. What would you have done if this happened to you? Let me know in the comment. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, share, and subscribe.